Chag Chanukah Sameach, and happy Boxing Day to all of you who are celebrating Boxing Day around the world. Thanks for taking the time today to join me. I am Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, and rain or shine, no matter what time of the year, I really try to endeavor to meet with you, our incredible Israel briefers from all around the world, to bring you the top stories making headlines in Israel, especially now during this time of war, where the mainstream media is not covering all the facts. And of course, at a time when there is so much misinformation out there, we endeavor to bring you the news from Israel, from the ground in Israel. And if you listened to my broadcast yesterday, you will know that I am broadcasting from Modi'in, the city of Chanukah. Yes, this is the city where Judah Maccabee and his Maccabees originated from. So a lot of things to celebrate at the moment, albeit very, very muted, because it is day 447 since the 7th of October. And until we get all 100 of our hostages back, none of us can really move on and heal and celebrate in full. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And next week, we won't be producing a newsletter. We are taking a bit of a break. But if you do want to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, please be in touch with us via our website. So let's take a look at those top stories before I get to the question and the mensch and moron of the week. And we start with a message for the Houthis from Prime Minister Netanyahu at a candle lighting ceremony last night. The Prime Minister warned the Iranian-backed proxy that they will suffer the same fate as Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Assad regime. He says they will suffer the same fate as the rest of the Middle East. Now, this follows another attack yesterday morning towards the center of the country, waking us up at about 4:30 in the morning, sending us into our shelters. The Houthis have said that they will not stop these attacks while the war in Gaza continues. And reports coming from Yemen report that the Houthis are at their highest ever readiness for combat in preparation for an Israeli retaliatory strike. Israel's Ministry of Health will submit a report to the United Nations that will highlight the suffering and the struggles of hostages both in captivity and who have been released, either through the ceasefire deal in November last year or through rescue efforts by our soldiers. Now, the report focuses predominantly on the medical issues that are believed to be suffered by those still in captivity, and the focus group to record the struggles after captivity are predominantly on the groups that were released in the November 2023 ceasefire. And the stories are absolutely harrowing. We have been covering the impact on health, the severe impact on the health of the hostages that includes women being used as slaves, women being sexually violated, men and children being sexually violated, severe malnutrition, respiratory and heart issues, severe psychological trauma, and inability to go on with life, to be able to be around people, to complete daily tasks for the hostages that have since been released. Some of the hostages were operated on without anesthesia and did not receive medication. We know that there are still hostages being held who desperately need life-changing or life-saving medication. They have not received that in the 447 days, nor have they received a visit from the Red Cross. And this is not the first time in our history that the Red Cross has ignored the suffering of Jews. We had this during the Holocaust, and we are having this now. And we don't buy their excuse that they have no access to Hamas. They have access to Hamas. If you are able to be in the Gaza Strip in any capacity, as a journalist, as an aid organization, you have contact with Hamas. And last week, for the first time, a family member of a hostage addressed the United Nations Security Council. Michael Levy, the brother of Or Levy, whose wife Einav was slaughtered on the 7th of October, and Or remains in captivity by Hamas. Staying with the United Nations, and President Herzog will address the UN General Assembly on the 27th of January. The 27th of January has been designated by the United Nations as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It is a day that coincides with the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp. Now, this coming year, 2025, marks 80 years since the Russian Red Army liberated the death camp, and Prime Minister Netanyahu will not attend ceremonies in Poland because of the ICC warrants of arrest. There are threats by Poland to possibly arrest him. The Prime Minister's office said he had no intention of going, and we will see who Israel will be represented by, but our president, our head of state, will address the UNGA. It is a day of solemn memorial and remembrance and commemoration, and includes not only the 6 million Jews who were systematically slaughtered, but also other population groups, members of the LGBTQ community, Sinti and Roma political dissidents, and those deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. King Charles, who is still undergoing treatment for cancer, is reported to be attending the ceremony at the Auschwitz death camp. I just want to step on my soapbox for a moment, because I think for many world leaders, people like Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and others around the world who have failed their Jewish communities throughout the last now nearly 15 months, they will no doubt be making sure that they are sufficiently photographed looking solemn and bowing their heads in memoriam. If you cannot protect your Jewish communities now in the face of intolerable anti-Semitism, you have no business being at ceremonies like this that commemorates what happens when hatred against Jews remains unchecked. And finally, very quietly, the desalination plant at Deir al-Balah in Gaza has been added to Israel's electricity grid. Now, this shows cooperation by Israeli and Palestinian stakeholders to improve the water situation for civilians in the Gaza Strip. It is a very complicated procedure getting water out, because although Kogat has been sending in fuel to power the desalination plants, and although this is an indication that we could see a possible involvement by the Palestinian Authority in Gaza following the war, the water pipes have been destroyed by the war, a lot of them, and a lot of them have been destroyed by Hamas using those water pipes as material to fire rockets at Israeli civilians. Now, Israel, who was accused of committing water genocide, it's the first time I've ever heard of such a term by Human Rights Watch, is only really responsible for about 6% of the water in Gaza. The rest, there are desalination plants and other organizations responsible for ensuring that civilians get water. Kogat has been sending in tens of thousands of liters of water, fresh water, into Gaza since the war began. So those are our top stories. Let's now get onto the audience question of the day. I love this. It comes from Michael from Toronto, who says, Rolene, thanks for your Hanukkah lesson yesterday. I want to know, do Jews celebrate New Year's Eve? Well, that's a very good question, because as one of our viewers asked the other day, the explanation of the Hebrew calendar. Now, in Israel, New Year's is basically a work day. It's a normal day, much like Boxing Day is today, because we follow the lunar calendar. So for us, our New Year is Rosh Hashanah. That would be around September, October time. However, we do have many people in Israel who come from countries around the world who do celebrate the Gregorian calendar or follow the Gregorian calendar, and they celebrate New Year's Eve, which here is called Sylvester. I think that comes from the many people who come from the former Soviet Union. They brought with it the term Sylvester. So some people will celebrate, others won't celebrate. I will say that celebrating and partying is not very much on the minds of Israelis at the moment. We are still very, very much affected by the hostage situation and, of course, by war. I can't forget last year, New Year's Eve, here in Modi'in, we had about 8 rockets fired by Hamas towards our city. So, you know, we live with this constant pressure of war. You know, somebody on my Facebook page yesterday kind of made light of the rocket, saying, you know, so rude, the noise. And for us in Israel, and I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, we can't make light of these things. For us, the rockets have been non-stop since the 7th of October. They have killed people. They have destroyed people's homes, destroyed people's businesses, and caused unbelievable trauma to our children and to many around the country. So we live with this all the time, and I think it's going to take a long time before we are able to find that point where we can start thinking about healing. But we can only do that when our hostages are returned to us. So a little bit of a tangent answer, but Michael, I hope that answered your question. And finally, on to the mensch and moron of the week. And they were both pretty unanimous. I will reveal to you the mensch of the week, and I couldn't agree more. The phenomenal former Sky News Australia reporter, Erin Molan, who made it very clear she was not let go from Sky News Australia for her views on Israel, because the channel is extremely pro-Israel. But she was in Israel over the last week. She is a beacon of moral clarity. She stands firm and strong in the face of the most horrendous hatred and abuse. But as she said, very similar to Douglas Murray, that she knows wrong from right, and standing with Israel, standing with the Jewish people, is standing for a better future for humanity. So Erin, if you are watching, from the bottom of my heart and from all my viewers, you are our mensch of the week. And now on to the moron of the week. And there were some very, very passionate opinions coming from viewers who recommended this. And this follows a post by adventurer Bear Grylls. I know he does all these outdoors things, eats locusts, drinks his own urine, does some crazy things. And he has released a book called The Greatest Story Ever Told. And it's the story of the birth of Jesus. And he goes on to describe Mary as Maryam, the Arabic iteration of her name, and that they were Palestinian refugees. Well, first of all, he got absolutely ratioed by people on X. He has removed the original post and put a slightly diluted post back with the same message. We're going to get you, Bear, because you are effectively erasing Judeo-Christian history. So, Bear, if you're watching, here's a lesson for you. Mary, who was a Jew, whose Hebrew name would have been Miriam, and Joseph were on their way to Bethlehem, in order to complete a census. The term Palestinian or Palestine would only come about over 100 years later, when the Romans tried to erase the Jewish ties and the Jewish history in Judea. Islam would only happen hundreds of years after the death of Jesus Christ. Ergo, Miriam, Mary, and Joseph and Jesus could not be Palestinian refugees because Palestine did not exist, and the term Palestinian, as we understand it today, was only coined in 1964 with the Pan-Arabist movement. So before you erase our sacred Judeo-Christian history, please do your homework, take a history lesson, and stop pandering to those who seek to erase our very existence. So I hope that message gets to Bear Grylls. And my message to you for this weekend is, guys, have a wonderful weekend. A Shabbat Shalom, Chag Chanukah Sameach, as we continue to light our Chanukiot. If you are looking for reading material, look no further than our website at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottle Site, our YouTube channel at The Israel Brief. We're on X at Lay of the Land 5, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, and on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks. Guys, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, stand strong in the face of adversity, bring light into the world, and I will see you again on Monday. Bye for now.